Happy Celebration Friday. Thank you for tuning in. So today we are celebrating you at whatever activities that you did that moved you closer to your goals. If you tried something new, if you were nicer this week than you were last week, or if you just did a good deed for someone, we celebrate you. Give yourself a pat on the back and say, good job, self. My name is Bwalia Desmond. I am a mom, a wife, and I am on a mission to help families create and increase their financial wealth. So today what we're talking about is the subject of resentment. And why do we talk about resentment? Because resentment affects each and every one of us at one point in our lives. If you're living, you know you'll have an opportunity at some point to be resentful. But where does it all begin? It all begins with anger. And it can be something as simple as maybe somebody gave you a funny look that you didn't like. Maybe that somebody gave you a short answer and you thought they were being rude. You thought, how rude, because somebody gave you a short answer and you didn't think that was sufficient. Or it just starts with something that is just so minute that can grow into something that can become so big, and you therefore are living in a place of resentment. But guess what? Resentment only affects you if you're the person who is feeling the resentment, right? It affects you. And you've got to release it. And until you release it, you're going to live in bondage and you're just going to be the only one suffering. And you don't want to suffer because of that. So typically it would start with anger. And half the time, if you would take a look and you'd really dig deep, you'd understand that something more was going on with your life, that you became so angry about some small issues. Some things are big issues. Sometimes we get caught into being victims of something that we never asked for. At that point, you got to let the anger go as well. The Bible talks about us being slow to be anger, right? Slow to anger and quick to forgive. That's what the Bible tells us to do. Because it is something that we deal with, and it is something that's difficult to actually let go of. So you get angry, right? And then if you don't let go of that anger, now you get to a place of resentment, right? Now you're just resenting the person, you're resenting the situation, you're resenting why you're in a certain spot, and maybe you deserve better and so forth. And then if you don't let that anger go, guess what you're going to end up with? It's going to turn into hatred. I mean, have you ever found yourself in a place where you just are like, I hate her or I hate him? That whole little thing of just being so angry at someone that you wish the worst on them. And then if you don't let that go, if you don't take care of it, then it turns into vindictiveness. Now you're just vindictive. You are like getting out of control almost. And then there's even a stage past that, and that's malice. And when you get to this point, this is, I think, the point where we typically hear about somebody committing a crime or somebody doing something where they're completely remorseful, right? Where you can do things that you can't even take back. Deal with the resentment. Don't let anger get to the place where you are so angry that you resent a person, and you start to act funny towards them and so forth. Get before the Father and ask. If you are having a hard time releasing it yourself, ask God to help you release that. Because I remember a time, guys, when a few years ago, when a really close friend of mine, we were really close. I mean, we met in college. We had some great experiences. We were always close and so forth. And I remember calling her one day, and she told me that I should be so lucky that she was answering my phone call. Which absolutely took me back, because I thought, what? How, what? Again, just one of those things that, I went from, hello, what? I just can't believe she just said that. And to the anger to resentment, and it did. I resented her for it, because it was like uncalled for in my sight. It was like, how could you say that? And, and it really affected our relationship, because from that point on, we weren't close anymore. And then because we lived in separate towns, it was easy to snuff, right? It was easy to just say, you know what, I don't have to deal with her, so I don't have to think about it. And it wasn't until I went to a Her Voice women's conference that they had a segment where they said, you need to ask the Lord who you need to forgive. You need to ask the Lord to bring somebody to your mind that you need to forgive. And the Holy Spirit quickened me and brought her name to me. And his direct instructions were, you need to release her. You need to release her. So who do you need to release today? Because even though I hadn't seen her, that there was a part of me that had not released her, but I bet she wasn't suffering from it. Well, I mean, I guess I didn't know, but you're the only person that suffers from holding on to resentment. So ask the Holy Spirit, who do you need to release? Who are you holding unforgiveness or anger towards or resentment towards? And let yourself be free from that. Because you don't need to suffer from something like that. Because not only that, it affects other areas of your life. So ask yourself, maybe you're struggling in an area. Maybe you're struggling to have friends. Maybe you're struggling to keep relationships. Maybe you just have, a bad attitude, or you're finding yourself more negative than usual. Ask yourself, is there somebody or something that you're angry or resentful towards? It can be as simple as that, but it can affect your world. It brings out bad energy. So therefore you become a repellent. So ask yourself, what could be the reason that you are not progressing, you're not where you need to be, you're not in the right relationships, or you just seem like you're on edge all the time, or you just seem unhappy. So I thank you for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow.